Everyone found a partner, but the alien vampire queen was ignored until a human reached for her. Every 100 years, the interstellar union brought together beings from hundreds of planets, moons, and space stations, not just to celebrate life, but to form alliances that would shape the next century. Bright lights from hovering ships lit the skies over the central arena, casting long reflections on the polished metal floors. The air vibrated with excitement, music, and the chatter of hundreds of languages, some melodic, some harsh, and some that sounded like whispers in the wind. Nyxara, the alien vampire queen, stood silently at the edge of the arena. Her wings were folded neatly behind her, black as midnight, yet shimmering as if dusted with stars. Her eyes, a deep crimson, scanned the crowd, taking in the flurry of activity. Elegant beings paired off, laughing and exchanging pleasantries. Some were humanoid, some had multiple limbs, and others glowed with inner lights. Yet no one looked at her. Despite her royal status, despite the centuries she had lived and the power she wielded, Nyxara felt invisible. The whispers about her, the legends of her strength and age, had built a wall around her that no one dared cross. To many, she was untouchable, too dangerous, or too strange. The truth was far simpler: she was lonely. For centuries, she had ruled her planet with wisdom and justice. Her subjects admired her, respected her, and sometimes feared her, but she had never shared her life with anyone else. She wondered if the centuries of solitude were meant to continue forever. Around her, the ceremony continued. A tall, golden-skinned alien paired with a creature whose skin flickered like liquid metal. They bowed to one another, their movements in perfect harmony. A small group of winged beings danced together, their laughter like a chime ringing through the arena. Nyxara watched quietly, her expression neutral, though a small ache of longing pulled at her heart. Her attention was caught by a group of diplomats, exchanging gifts of rare crystals and glowing orbs. Everyone seemed to know exactly what to do, how to act, how to impress each other. Nyxara could play these games too. She could show charm, tell clever stories, and display her power. But she had long stopped trying. Why reach out when no one dared to reach back? A sudden cheer erupted across the arena, and Nyxara turned to see a pair of young aliens performing a synchronized display of skill. Their wings flared, their tails twirled, and the crowd erupted into applause. For a moment, she allowed herself to smile. It was beautiful to watch others find connection, even if it was not meant for her. Then someone bumped into her accidentally. She turned sharply, expecting an apology from a being terrified of her. Instead, it was a small, nervous-looking creature with pale green skin and 4 arms. It froze, eyes wide. I'm sorry," it stammered. "I didn't see you there." Nyxara's voice was calm but deep, carrying centuries of authority. "It is quite all right. Watch where you are going next time." The creature bowed quickly, muttering another apology, and scurried away. Nyxara's gaze returned to the arena. The pattern was the same everywhere she looked. Beings paired off, danced, exchanged gifts, or walked hand in hand, but no one came to her. It was as if her presence alone discouraged curiosity or interest. She had grown used to it. She had learned to observe from a distance, to enjoy the ceremony in her own way. But this year, for the first time, the ache of solitude felt sharper. Perhaps it was because she had come expecting nothing, yet secretly hoping that someone, anyone, might notice her. A gentle hum drew her attention upward. A small squadron of airships, adorned with glittering lights, swooped gracefully over the arena. The crowd gasped in delight as holographic displays of interstellar history danced across the sky. Nyxara's eyes followed the ships, fascinated by the precision and artistry. She admired humans and other species for such ingenuity, for the ability to create beauty even in vast emptiness. She stepped forward slightly, allowing herself to get closer to the crowd, hoping, in some small way, to feel part of the energy around her. The arena floor felt warm beneath her boots, vibrating softly with the energy of hundreds of beings celebrating life and connection. A sudden commotion near the center drew her gaze. A young human, clad in a simple uniform, had dropped a stack of glowing data crystals. Beings around him laughed or stepped over the crystals, unwilling to help. Without thinking, Nyxara moved toward him. Her presence alone caused the crowd to pause. "Here," she said, her voice smooth. "Let me help you." The human looked up at her, startled. His eyes widened not with fear, but with awe and curiosity. "Oh, thank you." I didn't expect," he trailed off, clearly unsure of how to react. Nyxara knelt slightly, gathering the fallen crystals with careful hands. The human crouched beside her, his movements awkward but sincere. "I'm Eli," he said, offering a small, warm smile. "Eli Varner." You are the alien vampire queen," Nyxara said simply, handing him the last crystal. "Nyxara." Eli's eyes sparkled, not with fear, but with genuine interest. "Wow, I've heard the legends. I didn't think they were real." Nyxara's lips curved into the faintest smile. No one had ever spoken to her like this, without fear or awe or judgment. There was only curiosity and something deeper, an openness that she hadn't felt in centuries. The crowd around them buzzed quietly, watching the interaction. Some were surprised to see Nyxara helping someone. Others whispered that perhaps she wasn't so untouchable after all. But Nyxara didn't care about the crowd. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. Eli carefully picked up the last crystal, brushing his hands against hers. "You're different from what I expected," he said, eyes full of honesty. "But in a good way." Nyxara studied him, her mind racing. What was this feeling? Curiosity, delight, perhaps even hope? She hadn't allowed herself to feel hope in centuries. She had ruled, commanded, and survived countless challenges, but she had never dared to hope that someone might choose her, not for power, not for fear, but for who she truly was. "Different can be good," she said softly. Eli nodded eagerly. "I think so. I'd like to know you, really know you." Nyxara's heart, long dormant in matters of companionship, gave a small flutter. Could it be that this human, brave enough to approach her, was the first in ages to see her as more than a legend? More than a title, the arena lights shifted, signaling the start of the next phase of the ceremony. Beings paired off again, moving gracefully to the music of the stars. Nyxara straightened, her wings unfolding slightly, catching the light. She looked at Eli. "Do you want to join me?" she asked. Eli hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, I would like that." Together they stepped into the flow of the ceremony, not as a spectacle, but as two beings curious about each other. The crowd continued their celebrations, many still too intimidated to approach her, but Nyxara no longer felt invisible. For the first time in centuries, the alien vampire queen felt that perhaps the legends didn't define her. Perhaps her story was only just beginning, and perhaps this human might help her write it. As the stars above shimmered and the music of 1,000 civilizations filled the air, Nyxara allowed herself a thought she hadn't dared to entertain in ages. Maybe being alone wasn't her destiny. Maybe, just maybe, someone had finally reached for her. And in that moment, for the first time in a very long time, Nyxara smiled. Not the smile of a queen to her subjects, but a smile of a being who had been seen, truly seen, for the first time. The millennium mating ceremony continued with a rhythm all its own. The arena, vast and glittering, seemed to pulse with life as beings of countless species mingled, laughed, and exchanged gifts. Nyxara, the alien vampire queen, walked beside Eli, the human who had bravely approached her. For the first time, she felt a small spark of warmth in her chest, something she had not experienced in centuries. Yet, despite this small happiness, a shadow of doubt lingered. The other beings around them paired off easily. Some formed quick bonds with laughter and shared games. Others exchanged glowing tokens, symbols of loyalty or admiration, as if their connections were a natural part of life. Nyxara watched them with quiet fascination. Every smile, every touch, every laugh reminded her of the vast emptiness that had surrounded her for so long. Eli noticed her silence. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone gentle, not intrusive. Nyxara studied him for a moment. "I am observing," she said finally. "It is curious to see how easily others form bonds. I have lived for centuries, yet I do not know this feeling." Eli nodded. "I think I understand. Sometimes being different makes it harder to connect." He glanced at her wings, then back at her face. "But that doesn't mean it's impossible." Nyxara allowed a faint smile. The human's words were simple, yet they carried a truth she had not dared to acknowledge. Perhaps the difficulty in finding companionship was not because she was unworthy, but because few had tried to look beyond her appearance, beyond her reputation. They moved through the crowd together, and Nyxara noticed something she had almost forgotten: curiosity. Eli's eyes did not hold fear or awe or hesitation. They held curiosity. He asked questions about her life, her travels across galaxies, her duties as queen. He listened intently to her answers, never interrupting, never judging. For the first time in ages, Nyxara spoke freely. She told him of the centuries she had spent observing other civilizations, guiding her own people, and studying the mysteries of the universe. She shared stories of distant stars and forgotten planets, of phenomena that no ordinary being could comprehend. Eli listened, his human mind marveling at the vast knowledge she possessed. "It must be lonely," he said softly at one point, his eyes meeting hers. "Living so long, seeing so much, and not having someone to share it with." Nyxara paused, considering his words. He was right. Loneliness had been her companion for centuries. Power, respect, fear, all these things had surrounded her, but none of them filled the emptiness she had felt. She had grown accustomed to solitude, but the ache had never truly gone away. "Yes," she admitted quietly. "It is a shadow that follows me, even when surrounded by others." Eli reached out and placed a hand near hers, not touching, but close enough that she felt a warmth that was foreign yet comforting. "Maybe shadows can be softened," he said, "even a little." Nyxara's eyes lingered on him, studying the sincerity in his expression. Humans were strange creatures, small, fragile in appearance, yet fearless in ways that amazed her. They could confront danger, endure hardship, and still reach out to others with kindness and curiosity. It was a trait she admired, perhaps even envied. The crowd around them grew louder as the next phase of the ceremony began. Beings were now paired for challenges that required cooperation and skill. Some teams performed intricate aerial maneuvers, others solved complex puzzles, and a few competed in displays of strength. Eli glanced at Nyxara. "Do you want to try one?" he asked. Nyxara's crimson eyes glimmered. "I have no experience in these games," she admitted. Eli smiled. "Then we will learn together. That's the point, isn't it?" Together, they approached a platform where a puzzle challenge was about to begin. A holographic maze of shifting energy walls glowed in front of them, and other pairs were already positioning themselves to start. Nyxara studied the maze, her mind analyzing the patterns, the movement, and the timing. Eli, in contrast, focused on the teamwork aspect. He watched how they could coordinate, communicate, and adapt. The horn sounded, signaling the start. Beings from all species began navigating the maze, some moving with speed, others with caution. Nyxara and Eli moved together. At first, their coordination was clumsy. Nyxara would take calculated steps, while Eli made intuitive choices. Their differences caused near collisions and minor delays. But as the minutes passed, a rhythm formed. Nyxara's analytical mind complemented Eli's instinctive approach. She noticed patterns he might miss. He took risks she might avoid. Slowly, they began moving as one. When they reached a section where walls shifted unpredictably, Eli shouted directions and Nyxara adjusted instantly. Their combined efforts drew impressed murmurs from nearby spectators. By the end of the challenge, they were among the first to finish. The crowd applauded, not just for their success, but for their cooperation. Nyxara felt a flicker of pride, a feeling she rarely allowed herself to experience. For the first time, she realized that partnership was not about domination or fear. It was about understanding, trust, and complementing one another's strengths. After the challenge, they walked through the arena together, now less like observer and more like partners. Nyxara noticed whispers following them. Some were surprised to see the fearsome vampire queen paired with a human. Others were intrigued by their apparent harmony. But Nyxara did not mind. For the first time, she felt that the opinions of others did not define her worth. As evening approached, the arena lights shifted to mimic the colors of a distant nebula. The music softened, and beings began gathering for a quieter, more reflective segment of the ceremony. Nyxara and Eli found a place on a balcony overlooking the event, away from the crowd. The stars above stretched endlessly, glittering against the black canvas of space. "It's beautiful," Eli said, his gaze on the stars. "All those worlds out there, and yet here we are together, even if just for a little while." Nyxara nodded. "I have seen many worlds," she said, "but the beauty of connection, that is rarer than any star or galaxy." Eli turned to her, curiosity and sincerity in his eyes. "Do you think you could ever have that connection?" Nyxara considered him carefully. She had spent centuries protecting herself, keeping her heart and mind focused on duty and survival. Trust had been a luxury she could not afford. But Eli's presence, his courage to approach her, his willingness to listen and understand, it stirred something deep within her. "I do not know," she admitted, "but perhaps it is possible." They sat in silence for a moment, letting the quiet of the stars surround them. For Nyxara, the sensation was strange yet comforting. The ache of loneliness had not disappeared, but it felt lighter, softened by the presence of someone who saw her without fear. Suddenly, a flare of light from the arena drew their attention. A group of young aliens had begun a performance of synchronized flight and energy manipulation. Their movements were precise, yet joyful. Nyxara watched them, reminded again of what she had missed: spontaneity, laughter, and the freedom to connect without expectation or pressure. Eli nudged her gently. "Do you want to watch them closer?" Nyxara smiled faintly. "Yes, I would like that." They descended into the arena, moving through the crowd with ease. For once, Nyxara did not feel the need to intimidate or control. She could simply be present, enjoying the moment, observing life in its purest form. Eli stayed close, offering quiet commentary, pointing out details she might overlook, and sharing in the wonder of the performance. As the performance ended, Nyxara realized something important. Loneliness was not a permanent state. It was a condition that could be changed through trust, understanding, and courage. Eli had shown her that reaching out, even in the face of fear and uncertainty, could create something new. For the first time in centuries, Nyxara felt a glimmer of hope. The shadow of solitude that had always accompanied her was still there, but it no longer consumed her. Instead, it was softened, tempered by the presence of someone willing to see her as she truly was. As the stars above the arena twinkled and the music of the galaxies played on, Nyxara and Eli walked together through the crowd. Their partnership was still new, fragile, and uncertain, but it was real. And for the first time, Nyxara believed that perhaps she could step beyond the shadows of her past and into a future where connection, trust, and even love were possible. The Millennium mating ceremony was far from over, and challenges still awaited. But for Nyxara, the alien vampire queen, the first step had been taken. A human had reached for her, not out of fear, but out of curiosity, courage, and kindness. And in that simple act, centuries of loneliness had begun to fade. The night of the Millennium mating ceremony had settled into a quiet rhythm. The stars outside the grand arena twinkled like scattered diamonds, and the soft hum of energy fields created a soothing backdrop to the celebrations below. Nyxara, the alien vampire queen, walked beside Eli, the human who had dared to approach her first. They had spent hours sharing stories, learning small details about each other, and quietly exploring the arena. Yet, as the moon of a nearby planet rose above the horizon, a new challenge awaited, one that would test their growing trust and partnership. Announcements echoed across the arena, drawing the attention of every being present. A new event had been added to the ceremony, one that had never been attempted before: the Starfall Trial. Beings were to navigate a field of floating energy crystals suspended in zero-gravity chambers, collecting specific light patterns while avoiding shifting energy traps. The challenge required intelligence, agility, and teamwork. Nyxara raised an eyebrow. "This is unusual." "And dangerous," Eli grinned. "Dangerous, yes, but I think it's perfect for us. We can try it together." Nyxara studied him, noting the fearless curiosity in his eyes. Humans were strange indeed. Small in stature, seemingly fragile, yet their courage often surprised even the most experienced beings. She allowed herself a faint smile. "Very well. Let us see if your human instincts can complement my centuries of experience." The chambers for the Starfall trial were enormous, transparent structures suspended above the arena floor. The walls shimmered with shifting energy, and the floating crystals glowed in colors that changed unpredictably. Beings from every species hovered near the starting zones, preparing for the trial. Some looked confident, some nervous, and a few glanced at Nyxara with apprehension. They had heard tales of her centuries-long life, her unmatched intelligence, and her mysterious powers. Many assumed she would dominate the trial effortlessly. Eli, however, whispered to her, "Ignore them. We only need to focus on each other and the challenge." Nyxara nodded. She had learned long ago that public opinion was irrelevant to success or survival. What mattered was skill, strategy, and trust in those around you. The horn sounded, signaling the start. Immediately, the chamber shifted. Crystals floated unpredictably, their light patterns changing in fast sequences. Some emitted beams that would reset progress if touched incorrectly. Others moved in erratic, jerking patterns that required precise timing to avoid. The first seconds were chaotic. Nyxara's mind calculated trajectories and probabilities, while Eli's instincts guided him through tight spaces with speed and flexibility. Left, Nyxara called, directing Eli past a cluster of moving crystals. Got it, he responded, leaping over a beam of energy. They moved in perfect harmony. Nyxara's long experience allowed her to predict patterns in the energy shifts, while Eli's quick reflexes and creative thinking enabled them to navigate sudden changes. Slowly, they began surpassing other competitors. A sudden wave of energy forced them to pause. A crystal had shifted unpredictably, blocking their path, and they were forced to find an alternative route. Eli frowned. We need to split for a moment. I can reach the upper path, you take the lower. Nyxara considered it carefully. Splitting up was risky. Without trust, it could be disastrous, but she trusted Eli. Agreed, she said. Be careful. As they separated, Nyxara focused on her path. Crystals moved faster now, and patterns became more complex. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, reflecting her concentration. She adjusted her movements with precision, leaping and gliding with a grace that few could match. Despite her power, the trial was a challenge even for her. The unpredictability of the energy field reminded her that she could not rely solely on experience. Meanwhile, Eli navigated the upper path. His human instincts guided him, but the chamber was unlike anything he had ever faced. Energy traps appeared suddenly, and light patterns shifted with a speed that made him question his perception. Yet, he adapted quickly, remembering Nyxara's guidance and the subtle movements of the crystals she had pointed out. Each success built their confidence, proving that human intuition could complement centuries of alien experience. Halfway through the trial, an unexpected complication arose. A massive cluster of crystals descended toward the center, threatening to block the main exit. Competitors scrambled to find alternate paths, some panicking, others giving up. Nyxara and Eli, however, did not falter. We can combine our routes, Nyxara suggested. I can manipulate the lower crystals to redirect the cluster while you clear the upper path. Eli nodded. Let's do it. Nyxara focused her energy, extending subtle influence over the shifting crystals below. They moved in response to her commands, creating a narrow corridor that allowed Eli to pass safely above. Eli, in turn, used his quick reflexes to trigger mechanisms that stabilized the upper crystals, preventing them from falling dangerously. Their coordination was flawless. Finally, they reached the end of the chamber together, touching the final crystal simultaneously. A burst of light enveloped them, signaling their success. Cheers erupted from the crowd, not just for their victory, but for the remarkable teamwork they had displayed. Nyxara's wings unfolded slightly, catching the light. She felt exhilarated, not because she had succeeded, but because she had shared the triumph with someone she trusted. Eli's presence made the victory sweeter, and she realized that partnership was more rewarding than solitude or fear-driven respect. After the trial, they floated outside the chamber, letting the energy fields reset. Eli laughed softly. That was incredible. You were amazing in there. Nyxara's eyes softened. You were not bad yourself, human. Your instincts, they are unpredictable yet effective. I have learned much from you today. Eli smiled. And I have learned from you. Centuries of experience can teach a lot, but sometimes courage and curiosity can bridge the gap. Their words were interrupted by a commotion in the arena. A rival delegation, clearly jealous of Nyxara's prominence and their success, had started whispering and pointing. Rumors spread quickly. The vampire queen paired with a human. How unusual, how daring, perhaps reckless. Nyxara noticed the tension but did not falter. She had faced far worse than gossip in her lifetime. Do you hear them? Eli asked, sensing her awareness. Yes, she said calmly. Let them speak. Their words carry no weight here. Eli nodded. Good, we have each other, and that's what matters. Despite their victory, Nyxara felt a familiar ache returning, the ache of isolation, magnified by the whispers around them. Even though she had a companion now, centuries of being ignored had left a mark. She had grown accustomed to watching from the sidelines, to being feared and to being alone. The voices reminded her of that old loneliness. But Eli did something remarkable. Without words, he took her hand, giving her reassurance through touch. It was simple, human, yet profound. In that moment, Nyxara realized something vital. She was no longer alone, and the opinions of others could not diminish the connection she had found. The next segment of the ceremony approached. the ceremony of reflection. Beings were asked to share a story, a memory, or a dream with their partner. It was an exercise in vulnerability designed to deepen understanding and trust. Nyxara hesitated. Sharing personal memories was not something she had done for centuries. She was used to command, not conversation. She was used to strategy, not sentiment. Eli sensed her hesitation. "It's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to share more than you want, but I'd like to hear your story if you feel ready." Nyxara considered him. His patience, his openness, and his encouragement gave her courage. Slowly, she began to speak. She told him of her early years as queen, the weight of responsibility, and the loneliness that had followed her through centuries. She spoke of planets explored, alliances forged, and moments of quiet contemplation among the stars. Her voice was steady, yet there was a vulnerability she rarely allowed anyone to see. Eli listened intently, nodding and asking gentle questions. "It sounds like you've done so much, seen so much, and yet you've carried it alone." "Yes," Nyxara admitted, "and it has not always been easy, but now perhaps things can be different." Eli's hand squeezed hers gently. "They can be, we can make them different together." Nyxara felt a warmth spread through her chest, something she had not felt in centuries. Hope. For the first time, she understood that connection was possible, even for a being as feared and mysterious as herself. Eli's courage to approach her, to trust her, and to value her beyond legend and reputation had changed everything. As the night progressed, Nyxara and Eli continued to explore the arena together. They watched other beings, learned about new cultures, and shared quiet laughter. The ache of solitude lingered, but it was no longer overwhelming. With someone willing to stand by her, she felt the first true taste of companionship in centuries. The turning point had come. Nyxara, the alien vampire queen, had found someone willing to reach past fear and legend, and in doing so, she had discovered that even a being who had lived for centuries could learn the joy of trust and connection. The sun of the distant star system was rising, casting a golden glow over the Millennium Mating Ceremony arena. Beings of every species moved gracefully, their forms illuminated by the soft light. Nyxara, the alien vampire queen, and Eli, the human who had reached out to her first, walked together through the crowd, their steps synchronized as if they had done it for centuries. The previous night had left Nyxara thoughtful. The Starfall trial and the ceremony of reflection had shown her the power of trust and partnership. Yet, she knew that words and victories were not enough to solidify real connection. True understanding came when challenges tested both heart and mind. "Are you ready for today's trial?" Eli asked, his tone a mix of excitement and cautious optimism. Nyxara's crimson eyes glimmered. "I am ready, but I am curious. What challenge awaits us now?" Eli smiled. "It's called the Labyrinth of Echoes. Each pair must navigate a maze that reacts to emotions. It tests cooperation, communication, and adaptability. From what I hear, many fail simply because they let frustration or fear guide them." Nyxara raised an eyebrow. "Emotions as obstacles, an interesting concept. Humans excel in emotion, yet you say many fail. Curious indeed." Eli laughed. "Don't worry, we'll succeed if we trust each other." The labyrinth was enormous, its entrance a shimmering arch of light. As they stepped inside, the temperature shifted, the air vibrating softly, responding to the thoughts and feelings of those within. Holographic walls shimmered, creating pathways that changed with the mood of the participants. At first, the labyrinth seemed simple enough. Corridors stretched ahead and faint light patterns marked potential exits. Yet, as they progressed, walls began to shift unpredictably. Bright, confusing pathways appeared and vanished, seemingly in response to subtle emotions. When Nyxara felt uncertainty, the paths warped. When Eli hesitated, corridors closed briefly before reopening elsewhere. "Focus," Nyxara said softly, taking Eli's hand. "Our emotions guide the maze. We must remain calm and synchronized." Eli nodded. "Right." Trust, observation, communication. Step by step, they moved through the shifting corridors. Nyxara's centuries of experience allowed her to notice subtle patterns, while Eli's intuition helped him sense which paths were safe. When walls closed suddenly, Eli's quick thinking found alternative routes. When traps appeared, Nyxara anticipated their movement and guided their steps. Halfway through the maze, they reached a section filled with mirrors. The reflections did not match reality. Instead, they showed distorted images of the participants' fears and doubts. Nyxara saw herself alone, Centuries of loneliness reflected back, her wings folded, her eyes distant. Eli saw himself failing, unable to protect Nyxara or solve the maze. "Do not be distracted by what the mirrors show," Nyxara said, her voice firm yet calm. "They are illusions, reflections of fears, not reality." Eli took a deep breath. "We're in this together, remember. No illusion can separate us if we stay focused." Nyxara nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Eli's words were simple, but they carried a truth more powerful than any spell or ancient knowledge. Partnership was strength, not fear. Together, they moved past the mirrors, ignoring the illusions of isolation and failure. Suddenly, a section of the labyrinth split into multiple corridors, each presenting a puzzle that required both logic and intuition to solve. Symbols floated in the air, shifting and changing colors. Some required speed, others careful observation. Eli studied the patterns instinctively, while Nyxara calculated probabilities and sequences. "Follow my lead," Nyxara said. "We must combine your instincts and my analysis." Eli nodded. "Got it." They moved with precision, communicating silently through glances, gestures, and subtle words. A floating symbol threatened to block their path, but Nyxara adjusted it with a wave of her hand, while Eli positioned himself to intercept a shifting energy barrier. The coordination was seamless, the trust between them palpable. After what felt like hours, they reached the center of the labyrinth. A large, glowing orb hovered in the middle, radiating pulses of energy. The orb responded to the emotions of those nearby, and only by synchronizing their focus could it stabilize. Nyxara and Eli exchanged a look. "Concentrate," Nyxara said. "Our thoughts must align." Eli nodded. "On three, 1, 2, 3. They focused together, aligning their intentions and calming their minds. Slowly, the orb's pulses became steady, its glow soothing. The labyrinth responded, walls shifting to create a clear exit path. "You did well," Nyxara said softly, her wings fluttering slightly in relief. "We did well." Eli smiled, breathing heavily. "We make a good team, Nyxara, better than I imagined." Nyxara felt a rare warmth at his praise. It was not the superficial admiration of subjects or rivals. It was genuine acknowledgement of her abilities, her wisdom, and her willingness to trust. As they left the labyrinth, the crowd outside erupted in applause. Competitors and spectators alike were impressed by their success. Some murmured that the vampire queen had never been seen showing such teamwork with a human before. Others whispered that perhaps her centuries of solitude had finally found a match in courage and curiosity. Despite the praise, Nyxara's mind lingered on something deeper. She realized that the labyrinth had tested more than their intelligence and agility. It had tested their emotional connection. She had spent centuries learning strategy, power, and diplomacy, but understanding another being's heart had been a lesson she had only now begun to appreciate. Eli noticed her contemplative expression. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Nyxara considered him carefully. "I am realizing partnership is more than shared tasks or victories. It is understanding, patience, and willingness to face fears together." Eli nodded thoughtfully. "Exactly. And humans, we have a saying, we grow stronger when we help each other even when it's hard. I think we just proved that." They walked together through the arena, observing other pairs as they attempted the labyrinth. Many struggled, letting frustration and fear take control. Some gave up entirely, their paths twisting endlessly without progress. Nyxara observed quietly, noting how simple human traits like patience, creativity, and courage could often overcome what seemed impossible. "It is remarkable," Nyxara said softly. "Humans, you see solutions differently. You do not rely solely on experience or power. You use intuition, emotion, and trust in ways that are enlightening." Eli laughed. "I think that's what makes us interesting. We fail often, but we keep trying. We take risks, sometimes blindly, and hope for the best, and apparently it works sometimes." Nyxara's eyes gleamed. "It does indeed, and in partnership it seems to work even better." As evening approached, the arena shifted again, signaling the next ceremony phase, the celestial dance. Beings were to move in coordinated flight patterns, weaving through holographic constellations projected into the air. Success required rhythm, trust, and cooperation. Many pairs faltered, their movements clumsy or uncoordinated. Nyxara and Eli stepped into the formation. Eli took the lead initially, guiding Nyxara through the first sequence. She mirrored his movements effortlessly, her wings catching light as they glided and twirled. Gradually, she began taking initiative, suggesting slight changes in pattern to improve their performance. Eli adapted immediately, their movements blending into harmony. Spectators gasped as the duo performed complex maneuvers with grace and precision. The combination of Nyxara's centuries of skill and Eli's human intuition created patterns that seemed impossible. They were not merely performing, they were telling a story of trust, understanding, and connection through motion. When the dance concluded, the crowd erupted into cheers. Nyxara looked at Eli, her wings folding slightly in acknowledgement. "This feels different from all other ceremonies I have witnessed," she said quietly. "It feels alive." Eli smiled, brushing a stray strand of hair from his face. "That's what happens when you share it with someone who cares, Nyxara, someone who isn't afraid of who you are." Nyxara felt a deep warmth spread through her chest. The ache of centuries of solitude had lessened, replaced by something new: hope, companionship, and the possibility of connection. She realized that even a being as ancient and feared as herself could learn to trust, to cooperate, and to find joy in partnership. As night fell, they stood together on a balcony overlooking the arena. Stars twinkled above, and distant planets cast soft glows across the horizon. Nyxara reflected on the day's events, the labyrinth, the dance, and every shared challenge, and felt a rare sense of contentment. "Eli," she said softly, "thank you for reaching out, for trusting me, for showing me that even one human can make centuries of loneliness feel lighter." Eli took her hand in both of his. "And thank you, Nyxara, for showing me that courage, wisdom, and heart can exist together, in someone I never expected." For the first time in centuries, Nyxara felt the full weight of a new realization. Partnership was not just about survival or victory. It was about growth, understanding, and the courage to face challenges together. With Eli by her side, she was no longer just a queen, feared and admired. She was a being capable of connection, capable of joy, capable of learning the simplest and most profound lesson of all: that no one is truly alone when someone chooses to stand with you. The night stretched on, filled with quiet laughter, shared stories, and the gentle hum of the arena lights. Nyxara and Eli stood side by side, ready to face whatever the ceremony would bring next. Together, they had learned that understanding and connection were the true triumphs, more enduring than any title, legend, or power. And for Nyxara, the alien vampire queen, the centuries of solitude had begun to fade, replaced by something far brighter: hope, trust, and the extraordinary power of companionship. The final day of the Millennium mating ceremony had arrived. The arena was alive with color and energy, filled with beings from countless worlds, each eager to witness the last and most important event. The final challenge was said to be the most demanding: the celestial convergence. Only those who demonstrated courage, ingenuity, and unwavering trust in their partners could succeed. Nyxara, the alien vampire queen, stood beside Eli, the human who had first dared to reach out to her. Together, they had faced trials that tested their minds, bodies, and hearts. Together, they had proven that trust and cooperation could overcome even the most complex challenges. Yet the celestial convergence was different. It promised danger, unpredictability, and a test unlike any other. Eli glanced at her. "Are you ready?" he asked, his expression steady but full of excitement. Nyxara's crimson eyes shimmered with resolve. "I am ready. Whatever awaits, we face it together." The arena floor transformed, glowing with a network of light pathways suspended in the air. Beams of energy crisscrossed above, forming moving platforms, rotating rings, and floating obstacles. At the center hovered a massive sphere of swirling energy, the convergence orb, which would stabilize only when each pair successfully navigated the paths and touched its surface in harmony. Nyxara studied the structure carefully. Centuries of strategy and experience guided her, yet even she felt the pulse of excitement in the air. The orb was not just a physical challenge. It would react to their focus, intentions, and synchronization. Every movement had to be precise, every decision balanced between intellect and instinct. "Let's move," she said, her voice calm and commanding. "Focus, observe, trust." Eli nodded. "Right behind you." They leaped onto the first platform. It rotated gently, then shifted rapidly as other paths appeared. Nyxara's wings extended slightly, giving her balance and speed. Eli adjusted quickly, relying on reflexes honed through human adaptability. Together, they moved through the first sequence flawlessly, their coordination drawing quiet admiration from nearby observers. Suddenly, a section of platforms began to spin uncontrollably, and energy beams shot across their path. Competitors scrambled, many failing to anticipate the shifting motions. Nyxara's eyes glowed faintly as she calculated timing, velocity, and angles, directing Eli through each moving obstacle. He reacted instinctively, using his human agility to compensate for sudden changes. Left, Nyxara called as a beam arced toward them. "Got it!" Eli shouted, vaulting over a rotating platform and grabbing her hand midair. Their synchronization became seamless. The arena seemed to acknowledge their teamwork, energy pathways stabilizing slightly as if responding to their combined focus. Other participants faltered, but Nyxara and Eli pressed forward, never breaking rhythm or trust. Midway through the convergence, the arena introduced the final obstacle, the Rift of Reflection. A vast void stretched ahead, with only a series of narrow, invisible pathways to cross. The void amplified fears, projecting personal doubts into reality. Shadows of failure, loneliness, and hesitation materialized in shimmering forms, attempting to distract and overwhelm those who approached. Nyxara hesitated for a moment, memories of centuries of isolation surfacing. Yet Eli's hand remained firmly in hers, grounding her. "We've faced worse," he said softly. "Trust me, trust us." Nyxara drew a deep breath. "Yes, together." They stepped onto the first invisible pathway. The shadows lunged, whispering doubts and fears. Nyxara saw visions of herself alone for centuries, her power meaningless without companionship. Eli saw visions of failure, of letting her down when it mattered most. Yet neither faltered. They focused on each other, matching steps, adjusting weight, and anticipating movements. With every stride, the shadows lost their strength. Nyxara's experience guided their path, while Eli's instincts allowed them to react to sudden changes. Together, they moved across the void, their trust and connection shielding them from the illusions. As they reached the center, the convergence orb glowed brighter, responding to their combined energy. The final sequence required simultaneous activation. They had to touch the orb while maintaining balance on shifting platforms, while beams of energy attempted to block their path. "On my mark," Nyxara said, eyes locking on Eli's. 3, 2, 1. They leaped together, landing on the orb's surface simultaneously. A brilliant wave of light radiated outward, enveloping the arena. The crowd erupted into cheers, their applause echoing across the galaxies. The convergence orb stabilized completely, shining like a miniature sun. Nyxara and Eli hovered briefly, suspended by the energy before gently landing on the arena floor. Nyxara's wings folded, her chest rising and falling with exhilaration. "We did it," she said softly, a rare smile gracing her lips. Eli grinned. "We did it together. And we did it well." The crowd gathered around them, admiration and curiosity in their eyes. Some whispered in awe, noting how the feared alien vampire queen had succeeded not by intimidation or power alone, but through collaboration with a human. Others marveled at the way Eli had trusted her, showing that courage and openness could bridge the gaps between species and legends. Nyxara looked at Eli. "I have been alone for centuries," she said quietly. "Many believed I could not be reached, that no one could understand or care, yet you have proven them wrong. You have shown me the value of trust, curiosity, and partnership." Eli's hand found hers again, warmth passing between them. "And you've shown me that courage, wisdom, and heart exist in ways I never imagined. Together, we've done more than succeed in challenges. We've learned from each other." The final ceremony approached, the selection of partners for the interstellar alliances. Delegates from countless worlds watched closely, awaiting the decisions. Many expected Nyxara to remain alone or to choose a traditional, powerful mate from a prominent alien race. Yet she surprised them all. Stepping forward, Nyxara addressed the assembly. Her voice was calm, confident, and resonant with centuries of experience. "For centuries, I have observed the galaxy, guided my people, and lived apart. Many have feared or avoided me. Many have judged me by legend, not by reality. But today I have found someone who sees me, not as a queen, not as a myth, but as a being capable of connection. I choose my partner, not for power, not for alliance, but for trust, courage, and understanding." Eli Varner human will walk beside me. A ripple of surprise passed through the crowd. Some gasped, others whispered in disbelief, yet there were nods of respect. The choice was unexpected, bold, and inspiring. Eli stepped forward, his expression a mix of pride, humility, and excitement. "I am honored," he said simply. "I never expected this, but I promise to walk beside you, learn from you, and face whatever comes together." Nyxara smiled, a genuine, radiant expression. "And I with you. Together we will face the stars, the challenges, and the adventures ahead." The arena erupted in applause. Delegates from other worlds recognized that this union was different. It was not built on fear, obligation, or politics. It was built on trust, courage, curiosity, and understanding. In that moment, Nyxara and Eli set a new standard for partnership across species, showing that true connection transcended appearance, legend, and expectation. Later, as the ceremony drew to a close, Nyxara and Eli walked together through the quieting arena. The stars above shone like a promise, reflecting on polished surfaces and the eyes of countless spectators who had witnessed something extraordinary. Nyxara paused, looking at the human beside her. "I have spent centuries believing that companionship was impossible for me. That fear and legend were stronger than connection. Yet you have changed that. You have shown me hope." Eli smiled softly. "And you've shown me that courage, wisdom, and heart can exist in ways I never imagined. We make a good team, Nyxara, one that others might learn from." Nyxara's wings brushed the air gently, the motion light and relaxed. "Yes, perhaps the galaxy will see that. That courage and understanding are more powerful than fear or appearances." As they looked out over the arena one last time, the stars above mirrored the glow of their achievement. Nyxara realized that the centuries of solitude and fear had not defined her. What mattered was choice, trust, and the willingness to embrace connection when it arrived. Eli reached out, holding her hand as they prepared to leave. "Wherever the stars take us, we face them together," Nyxara nodded. "Together, and perhaps in doing so we can inspire others to reach past fear, to trust, and to connect, no matter how impossible it may seem." The Millennium mating ceremony concluded, but the story of the alien vampire queen and the human who reached for her was only beginning. They had faced trials that tested strength, skill, and heart. They had overcome illusions, fears, and expectations. And most importantly, they had discovered that even in a galaxy filled with mystery, power, and legend, connection, courage, and understanding could create something extraordinary. For Nyxara, the centuries of isolation were finally behind her. And for Eli, the human who dared to see her for who she truly was, a new adventure awaited, together across the stars. As they walked side by side, the galaxy seemed a little smaller, a little brighter, and full of endless possibilities. And in that moment, every being watching knew one truth. Sometimes it only takes one act of courage, one hand extended, to change centuries of solitude, and to ignite the extraordinary power of companionship.